There are 7 specific mistakes that you're making with your webinars that are keeping you stuck under $1 million a month. And once you know them, you can get through those bottlenecks and you can finally start making real money. And these mistakes are costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars and you probably don't even know exactly what they are. Now, my name is Michael and we run over 300 webinars a year. So we have diagnosed all sorts of different scenarios and we've come up with the 7 mistakes that most commonly are made when clients are coming to us for us to help them scale. So number 1, one of the biggest mistakes is just diagnosing the wrong bottleneck or not even having enough data to figure out what the bottleneck is. Now, one of the most important parts of growing any kind of business is understanding when things are working and when they're not working. So very common issue that I see is somebody will come to us where they're like, yeah, we've been doing webinars over and over and over and over, and they're working great. And over the last month, they've all flopped. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what do you think it is? They have nothing. They don't have data. They don't understand their numbers. They don't understand their metrics. They're like, oh, I think it's this. I think it's that. I think it's the pitch. I think it's maybe our audience. I think our organic is burnt out. And I'm like, well, how do you not know? Like, why don't you know? Because they're just misdiagnosing. They don't have enough of that data. And so understanding that data is really important because it'll literally pinpoint the actual problem of what you're running into. So for us, in our company, we implement this data dashboard that has literally 80 different data points for each webinar. And so whether things are good or bad, we can analyze every single one of them all the way from the ad to the close. And we can diagnose what the actual problem is. And we can take that data and we can go fix that problem. Because the worst thing that you can do is not only not have the data, but have wrong data and misdiagnose. Give you a good example. We just talked to somebody who was about to change his pitch, but he had a 35% booking rate. 35% of the people that showed up to the webinar were booking a call, and he wanted to change his entire pitch, his entire CTA. It's like, no, dude, that's the wrong thing to do. That's the one thing I would not change. If you're gonna change anything, don't change the one thing that's actually working. It was the only thing working, right? All of his ads and everything were incorrect. He was using images instead of videos. He had like 4 ads trying to scale. On the back end, he had a 0% close rate. He was trying to scale the one thing that was actually working. And so mistake number 1 is misdiagnosing the bottlenecks and choosing the wrong thing to fix, because it will take you down a rabbit hole of negativity and lower revenue, which you don't want, right? Mistake number 2 is not sending enough emails and SMS to your audience pre and post webinar. Now, this is actually really common because most people have this block that says, oh, if I text them or email them too much, they're gonna unsubscribe. No, dude, you need to hammer the shit out of these people. And we found that you have to oversend them stuff just to get them to show up. Last 5-minute SMS that sends them the link to join and says that we're live, if that one message isn't sent, our show rate is literally in half. And so this is what I'm talking about with just hammering people. You have to hammer them over and over and over. And so I just had a scenario with one of our clients' team members, one of their employees on the marketing side, hit me up and she was like, hey, I signed up for the webinar yesterday and I've gotten 4 text messages since then. And she was like complaining about it. And I said, yeah, so what's the problem? And she was like, that's a lot. And I said, don't worry about it. You got one every single day that was trying to upsell you to purchase the product. Don't worry about this. This is how we make money. This is how these webinars work so well, because we know the amount that we need to send and we don't get a crazy amount of unsubscribes all the time because we're sending them with value, we're sending them with information, we're sending them with the idea that that person went to the webinar and showed up. When you look at the way that she was looking at it was that she signed up just to see the reminders, just to see the flow. She didn't sign up as a prospect, right? And so don't think that you're sending too much. Don't think that you're bothering people. It's all about if you can get that person to show up is the most important part. And then after, sending them enough to get them to purchase with the right information. And number 3 is not tracking pre-webinar lead quality. I made this mistake for a long time. And it felt like almost every single time I ran a webinar, I was crossing my fingers and I was risking all of this money to hope that they weren't all broke in the wrong leads when they showed up. And this is a mistake that most people make. They're typically not surveying people pre-webinar. And the way that we do this, there's another video called the DQ trap that I'll put here below that you can watch. But that video it basically explains the survey that we add to all of our webinars now so that I can get the feedback as an advertiser for lead quality. It also serves as a way to send different data back to the Pixel. But what it does is a survey that we can see who these people are pre-webinar. So instead of front loading all this spend, let's say we spend $10,000 on a webinar and we're crossing our fingers that when everybody shows up, they have the money and they can afford it. We know day 1 if we're in a bad pocket of people. We know day 3 if our ads have veered into a bad pocket of people by looking at this survey. This is one of the most important parts about making sure that you're not going to blow all of your money, because I've done it multiple times, and after all of the webinars I've ran, I had done it multiple times of where I literally spent 10K, 15K, and on the webinar we were like, shit, this is kind of the wrong pocket of people. A good example is back in the day, we were running a webinar for a client, and he had this ad that was just a banger, and it was him talking about how he used to work at Starbucks and now he's a multi-millionaire with Airbnb. The problem was, all we were at vanity metrics, because it's pre-webinar. We're looking at cost per lead, we're looking at click-through rate, we're looking at conversion. We're like, man, this is gonna be a banging webinar, right? We've got 3,000 people registered. Oh my God. Everybody was so broke. Nobody had money, because it was all these people that were like excited about they're working at Starbucks or they're working at like Carl's Jr. It was terrible, dude. So like, this is where this pre-call survey comes into play. And if you implement this, you're not going to have that problem. You're going to know immediately whether the people are qualified, whether they're able to at least afford your product. And then you can look at the next step of how do we get to book a call, convert, close, etc. And number 4, on the same topic of lead quality, is pixel conditioning, right? Making sure that you're not sending all of the data back to Facebook, because if you're in a bad pocket or your ads by themselves typically attract a lower quality audience and you're sending every single lead back to Facebook and you're optimizing for leads, Facebook is going to think that it's doing a good job, right? So the way that the pixel works is that if you send people to a page and they're converting and you're optimizing for that conversion, Facebook's gonna say, oh dude, there are so many people converting, let's go find more of those people. And so the way that you have to condition your pixel is to only send back specific leads. And so just like we were talking about right now with that pre-call survey, it allows you to also send back qualified leads that you determine are qualified to the pixel for Facebook to find more of those people. It's a really, really good way to make sure that you're not just gonna get stuck in a bad pocket and you're gonna, again, same thing as before, spend all this money in a bunch of like broke leads, right? And so you can almost guarantee, not guarantee, but you can nearly help yourself get a better quality of lead by telling Facebook, hey Facebook, we don't want the people that just opt in on the page. We want the people that fill out this survey and answer that they have $10,000 or more. And so when that fires back to Facebook, Facebook then looks for more of those people that you determine are a qualified lead. Now, important note about this is that you don't want to restrict too much of Facebook. So if you're right now probably thinking to yourself, man, I would love to have leads that have $100,000 or more in their bank to afford. It would be, they wouldn't bat an eye at my $10,000 program, right? The problem is, how many of those people are you getting? And if you're not getting enough of those people to send back to Facebook, you're also going to restrict the pixel, where the pixel is not even going to be able to find anybody for you. And it's going to keep attempting different pockets of people, and it's just going to keep spending money. It's going to increase your lead costs. And so try to find that balance. Try to find that qualified lead that isn't super like unicorn, if you will, but it's somebody that maybe has $10,000, $20,000, and you'd see that you get 30 to 40% of those people typically through your pre-call survey. Send that back to Facebook so there's enough data, but the right data for it to continue to optimize. And number 5 is not testing your topics on your organic audience first. Really big mistake is somebody is like, oh, I'd love to do a webinar about this, and they immediately jump into like paid ads with that. You don't know if the topic is gonna work. I filmed another video that was all about your topic mistakes, and the biggest mistake that you can make, literally the biggest one, is picking the wrong topic. And when you pick the wrong topic, the problem is everything is shot. Your cost per lead is shot, your conversion rate on your webinar, or on your page is shot, your show up rate on your webinar is shot, your conversion rate on the webinar to book a call is shot, your sales are shot. Like, everything is done because at the very, very, very top, you picked the wrong topic. And so testing your topic on your organic audience, whether that's through an email list, whether that's through paid ads, whether that's through your Instagram, right? You can just do a simple poll on Instagram and ask people what they want to learn. Do a topic first to your warmest audience, because if they don't convert on a warm audience or a hot audience of people that have bought from you or in your database, it sure as hell ain't converting when you go cold. And the last thing you want is a bad webinar that doesn't convert cold, that you're spending money on, okay? If you're not spending money, yeah, you waste a little bit of your time, you test it out, that's business, that's life, right? But if you're going to spend money, make sure you test these topics early so you can almost guarantee that the topic will at least do decent, and you can continuously iterate and adjust it as you go to paid ads, as you go to cold traffic. And mistake number 6 is jumping into paid ads too fast. I just had a call with somebody who wanted to work with us, and we're obviously like a very big paid ads type of agency, right? And he had not really tested out his webinar. He essentially was like, hey man, I've got this really good product. This is like what I've been doing to make money, and I want to do a webinar, and I want to start running paid ads. My buddy runs a webinar. He's making a couple $100,000 a month, so I want to do the same thing. And essentially I was like, well, to be clear, like it sounds like it's a really good product, right? Like I really like the product. I think it could work really well. Like it's very attractive. Like I saw like you had, a post or two kind of go viral. But if you've never ran the webinar before to cold traffic or even like enough to your warm traffic, there's a high likelihood that what's going to happen is you're going to have to pay to play, right? And so when you pay to play, you can go down 30, 50, 60, $70,000 to keep making these tweaks, right? And so when you pay to play, essentially is you're paying to try to figure things out. And so if you haven't tested it organic, if you haven't done it for free with a normal audience, how do you know that the topic is really good? How do you know that your pitch is really good? How do you know that your presentation is good? How do you know that your actual offer is good, right? Like this guy literally had built an offer and hadn't not even sold it yet. He doesn't even know his pricing of his offer yet. And so jumping into paid ads too fast can really burn you. And just to be clear, like it can work, right? Like we've taken on clients that they're just very successful people. Like they're really rich, they got a lot of money, they just want to do this, they don't have a big organic following, they don't have the time to build an organic following and test it. And we're like, cool, just a heads up, this is the reality is you could go down to $30,000, $40,000 in the first month. You got to pay us, you got to pay the ads, you're in 40, 50K. And are you comfortable with that if it doesn't work? Or if it only brings in a couple sales? Because if you run it and you realize that, man, I didn't pitch well, hey, let's do it again, right? Or the next time it's like, man, our sales team can't sell it at this price. All right, well, let's do it again and let's change the price, right? And so you can see how all of these small little things can accumulate and they can add up if you're not testing it before going into paid ads. And so what I basically told this guy was, hey, before you go into the paid ads, like I'm happy to help you. Like I'm down to do this, but within another 60 or 90 days, when you actually started testing this thing out organically, which means that go do a bunch of organic posts, do a bunch of like free stuff where, dude, you can post 3, 4, 5 times a day, get a couple viral posts, run a webinar every single week, regardless if 30 people sign up, regardless if 100 sign up, doesn't matter, run it, get the reps in, get the testing in, start selling this product, and don't pay for the audience, do it for free. After 90 days, you'll probably have an idea of what ads or what posts are working the best. You'll have an idea of what the presentation should be like. You'll have an idea of how the call to action should be on the webinar. You'll have an idea of what your pricing should be, what your offer should be. There are all these things that if you do it too early, you will have to pay to play and it will cost you a lot of money. So mistake number 6, do not jump into paid ads too fast. And mistake number 7 is not spending enough money on your ads. Now, this one's really interesting because it's not usually somebody in the early stages. It's usually somebody who's got a little bit of success. They're spending maybe $10,000, $15,000 per webinar, per week, whatever that may be. But the problem is they get into this trap, right? And this trap happens all the time because when you're spending 5, 10K per webinar, you can hit more closes, better ROAS, better revenue because you're not spending enough money. So overall, you may be spending like $50,000 a month and you may be sitting right now at a 5 or a 6x ROAS, right? And so one of the traps that you get into is when you start to spend a little bit more, your ROAS starts to drop. And this is the first time you've ever experienced ROAS going from, let's say, a 6 down to a 4.5 or a 6 down to a 5, right? And typically what happens is that, number one, you're probably fatiguing more of your ads, right? You're starting to spend more money, you're starting to push the budget. Number two, your account lives and breathes and behaves a certain way. And so you will obviously, after time running your own ads, understand how your account behaves, right? And so that's basically like if I lift this budget by 20%, it usually tweaks out my ads, right? So let me try 15%, or let me try 10%, or let me just try duplicating this, right? And so I actually have another video that's all about scaling your ads from 0 to 10K, and I'll plug that right here. So that's where I kind of dive into it more. But basically, when you're doing this, you have to be very mindful that you will start to get that drop, right? You go into colder and colder audiences, but you do not want to slow down. You need to be comfortable with getting a little bit lower ROAS and continuously optimizing, because what will happen in your account too is that once you hit a certain level, you will be able to just spend more, right? So if you're stuck at about 10K, you have to break that ceiling. You have to go spend 15 and you have to just keep spending 15 and keep spending 15 and keep spending 15. Obviously smart, again, watch that other video. And that's where you will start to see your ROAS start to climb again, right? And what you don't want to get into is this trap of having to stay at a 4 or 5x ROAS, and you're, let's say, spending $50,000 again, right? And you're at a 4x ROAS, so you spend your 50, you're making 200,000, right? But let's say we go from 50 to 100 and you drop to a 3. Well, are you still making more money at a 3x, spending twice as much money as you were spending 50 to a 4x, right? Yes, you're making more money. And the same thing as you continue to scale. We have many clients who, when they're typically around like $100,000, $150,000 in spend, they start to drop ROAS a little bit. That's where you start to go from a 4 or 5 down to like the 3s, 3.5. But if you can spend $300,000 a month and you make a 3x, you're making $1 million a month and you're taking home close to probably $600,000 after all your expenses. So don't get caught in this trap of not spending money because you're worried about your ROAS dropping. So if you are making any of these 7 mistakes with your webinars, go back, test them out, change them, and I guarantee that you will see a big difference moving forward. So I hope this helps. See you in the next one.